If you love black music, you got to check out Q Points.
I'm Sir Daniel, and I'm a DJ.
I'm J Ray, a lover of black music history.
Join us as two music heads give you the lowdown on everything from the dopest MCs to hip-hop and fashion.
Listen to Q Points on your favorite podcast platform and check out our website at qpoints.com.
That's QUEUE points.com. Hey, welcome back. Oh, am I in the frame?
Are you in the frame? We lost Sir Daniel, y'all. There he is.
There I am. But check this out.
We're gonna get you. There you go.
Listen, welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Q Points Podcast. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
And my name is J Ray, sometimes known by my government as Johnny Ray Cornegate the Third. What's happening, people?
This is Q Points Podcast, dropping the needle on black music history. And J Ray, we are going to do just that on this follow-up episode, because last week I still can't get over last week because it was so dope. Do you know that right after that show I found the 12-inch of Soul to Soul's Missing You, and I have been running it in the ground. The remixes are so dope. The various versions are so awesome. I've been running that into the ground. That show was so awesome. As a matter of fact, I think I have a clip that I'm going to share on social media once that show drops so that you guys can see it. But J Ray, how are you, friend? And what's been going on?
Man, I am great. Actually, not actually. I'm blessed. Generally, but it's been an awesome week. Where I've gotten the opportunity to learn some new things, do some new things, some new stuff that we have going on at work is really dope. We have so many things popping off as it relates to Q Points that,
for sure,
man, that are just making me excited. And so I'm feeling really good. And tonight, Jason came back. Jason Randall Smith came back to hang out with us because we have so much more to cover. So all of this is good. So I'm feeling great. How are you feeling?
I am fantastic. At the same time, I do want to implore everybody that's listening right now. I want you to make sure that you're taking care of yourself because there's a lot going on. Yeah. I mean, 2023 hasn't been a slouch. There has just been a continuous wave of just, if it's not something political, it's something environmental. We are losing other members of the community that have given us plenty of joy. Just this past week, we lost Clarence Avant.
Yep.
The godfather of just black everything, black Hollywood, black music. We lost him. We lost Magoo.
Yeah.
He was Jerry, he was only 50.
He's so, we're so close to his age.
That's the part that really got me. It's like, wow, he's not that much older than either of us. And, I'm just, feeling for Timbaland and for Missy at this time because they were a very tight-knit group. They already lost Aaliyah and they lost Static Major from their super friends, from their musical family. And but I am happy to know that we are going to talk about the topic we're talking about right now tonight on this episode is directly linked to Timbaland and Magoo, because their music, his style of production, their music is definitely a continuation of the style that we are going to be discussing tonight. Matter of fact, there's some times that he interpolated a lot of what we're about to discuss tonight in his act. And of course, I want to shout out to Delvec of Junior Mafia
Mm.
passed away as well, and I know he wasn't 50 because
Yeah.
we're all in the same age group. So he may not be a name that you know, but he was a very important part of hip hop history. So all that being said, I want everybody to take care of themselves. We've got a lot of um anti-blackness all over the
Hmm.
internet, and of course, Fonnie Willis is being threatened here in Atlanta because of bringing what's his name up on charges, and it's just a whole lot. It can get very overwhelming, so that's why I'm saying, please make sure you take care of yourselves. Unplug to
Yes.
listen to Q points though. So
Yeah.
unplug with us, get away from all of that stuff that's been happening. And in order for that to keep happening, though, there are some things that you must do in order to support
Yes.
Q Points. J Ray, please tell them what those things are.
Yes, y'all. Please. So one, thank y'all so much for y'all continuous support. If you are here watching or listening, however you are taking this conversation in, hit subscribe. Hit subscribe wherever you are, and hit up the follow or the notification bell if there is one, so that you can be notified when we go live. Um, it is so important that the people in your life, your friends, your family, those folks that you love and trust, know about Q Points. So share the show with them. As simple as copying that link, sharing it to your platform so that folks know that Q Points is live right now. That is huge. That's really the thing that helps this show grow, right? Is y'all telling people about the show. If you want to go a step further and join the Q Points family, you can visit our website at qpoints.com, click the subscribe button, and you can become a member. You can shop our store at store.qpoints.com. And you should also join our mailing list. So if you visit magazine.qpoints.com, that also acts as our newsletter. You get a lot of dope stuff, some behind the scenes stuff. There are so many things that we've covered in our last show, and that will undoubtedly cover in this show. We're not going to be able to go real deep, right? Because we have a limited amount of time. So there will be things that end up in the newsletter. So definitely sign
Mm-hmm.
up.
Well, that was a mouthful, J Ray. I hope they were able to take it in, and I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
they will, because we've got some really great people that continue to support us,
Mm-hmm.
including Carlton. We see you in the chat. Thank you once again for continuous support, for the wonderful reviews that you provided on the site for the merchandise. But J Ray, as you mentioned, Jason Randall Smith is back. We
Yes.
can't wait to chop it up with him. Um, excellent time speaking with him. But tonight, before we do that, we got
Mm-hmm.
to let the people know that they got to tune in on Saturday, because something really fun is happening on Saturday. We are teaming up with our friends over at the White People Won't Save You podcast for a very special episode
Yes.
of White People Won't Save You podcast and Q Points crossover, because we are delving into a deliciously terrible 80s classic that you probably never heard of, but we are going to have a ball discussing that on Saturday. What time should they tune in, J Ray?
Yo, so join us at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the White People Won't Save You podcast Discord. So here's how you get there: go to our Instagram or go to our Twitter, and the link is available. So make sure that you join the White People Won't Save You Discord server. You could do it from your phone or you can do it from your desktop. A lot of other people have Discord servers too that you might be into. So, but join their Discord server, and we're going to be in the live watch section, watching this film that I know nothing about except the trailer. And my God, I can't wait to see this foolishness, Sir Daniel.
Like I said, deliciously terrible. Cannot wait. But you know what else has been delicious? I've been really reveling in the hip hop 50th anniversary celebrations that have been going on all over the country. the fantastic show at Yankee Stadium, of course, and the major concerts that have been going on as well. And every time I see somebody that has contributed to hip hop, I'm like, wow, I'm so thankful for them. I'm so thankful for what they've done. One of those groups, of course, is De La Soul. I think about the UMCs.
Yeah.
And I also think about Us Three, and
Us
we're gonna
Three. Yes.
Us Three, yeah. So we're going, and the reason, and they've come up because we are talking about trip hop and drum and bass on this episode of Q Points, and drum and bass and hip hop are a direct offspring of hip hop. So it's only right that we talk about it, and we're going to be talking about it with our special guest, Jason Randall Smith. He is also our cousin from up top. He's another one of our cousins. So listen, get into this this break that we're about to roll, and on the other side of the break, we will start the discussion of trip hop here on Q Points Podcast, dropping the needle on Black music history.
Boom.
There are two types of people in the world: those who complain about the state of today's music and those who dig. I'm Jason Randall Smith, and I invite you to check out Radio BSOTS, Both Sides of the Surface, a music podcast championing the work of independent artists from around the way to around the world. With a primary focus on Creative Commons licensed music, think of this show as a never-ending virtual crate dig through a parallel universe of online labels, seeking out the hip-hop, soul, jazz, funk, and electronic music gems that are often hiding in plain sight, and hopefully demystifying the world of Creative Commons along the way, one song at a time. You can find Radio BSOTS wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information, visit the website at bsots.com. That's BSOTS.com.
And we are back. It's Q Points Podcast, dropping the needle on Black music history. And that very soothing voice that you just heard is none other than the urbane, the mysterious at the same time, Jason Randall Smith. Our cousin, he's back. Please welcome back Jason Randall Smith to the Q Points Podcast. Jason, how you doing?
Respect due to the Q Points crew. Respect to the Carlton in the chat room. Respect due to those checking us out live. I am so thankful to be back. Had a real fun time. I'm very much basking in the glow of last week's show on UK hip hop and soul. So I was extremely thankful to do that, to chop it up with y'all, and to be back here for another one.
That, like I was saying to J Ray in the opening, that show brought back so many memories. Like I said, it was kismet. I bumped into the 12-inch of Soul to Soul's Missing You, and I've been running it into the ground and thinking about a lot about that music, that particular era, especially in the mid to late 80s to the early 90s, which was just so magical. And really, if you have not had an opportunity, if you skipped ahead onto this episode, this may be your first time checking Q Points out. But listener, if you're just now checking out this episode, you must go back to the first part that features Jason Randall Smith as we're talking about UK hip hop and soul. You'll hear everything about from the Cookie Crew to Moni Love to Level 52. I've gotten into Level 52. I went into a Level 52. No, that's
Level 42.
52nd Street. I'm sorry.
52nd Street, which comes up in this. We got so much. It's all connected. I'm so excited about this.
So I went into a rabbit hole and didn't even know, and I'm well prepared for this conversation. So, J Ray, let's take it away and just give us a brief history about how trip hop and hip hop got connected.
Wow. This is gonna be an interesting conversation. But before we do that, I just want to do one thing. So, Jason, I just want to revel in the fact that thank you for coming on. You have been podcasting for more years than both Sir Daniel and I. You are here doing a visual podcast with us. And this is your first time doing that. So we're so grateful that you trusted our space enough to make this where you come on camera for the first time. Thank you.
Well, if I was going to do this for the first time, it just makes sense that I would do this with some heads that I considered very much sonic kindred spirits. With every episode that I've watched, with every episode that I've listened to, I've definitely felt like there was a conversation that I was having with y'all even before this moment took place.
Yeah.
Because of the sonic and harmonic places and spaces that we've resided in, either with our headphones on or just the speakers cranked up to 11
right.
in our private time. But there are those moments that connect us musically, be it with certain songs, certain albums, certain genres and subgenres. And then there are just some things within our personal crates that, maybe those are the things that we only know about, but then we can just sort of sit down in conversations like this and kind of, quote unquote, trade up with each other.
Yes.
So yeah, if I was going to do this had to be the place. It was meant to be like this.
Ashe. Listen, big up. And y'all, so Sir Daniel, last week when we did the show, you centered us in something that is still really important as we talk about tonight's topics. And that is the connection of the folks of Jamaican heritage to these styles of music. The entire Caribbean, you are absolutely right, to the styles of music that we're about to talk about tonight. So all of these artists that have some of what we're going to discuss. So we're talking about Goldie, and we got Ronnie Size, and we got Tricky. These are all folks of Jamaican heritage, right? One or both parents, right? And so, what that brought me back to as I was preparing for this show, we were talking about like the Busta Rhymes honor. And you were like, some people are like questioning Jamaicans' connection to hip hop. And I'm like, and we were confused at the time. Even more confused as we began to dive into the history of these styles of music that we're even going to talk about, because these folks are right there at the center. Reggae is right there at the center of these things, right? So I just wanted to acknowledge that before I give kind of a brief history of trip hop. This is the briefest history of trip hop ever. And there's a reason why it's brief too, is because the foundation of hip hop really sits in with one group in a place and a time. And then it kind of branches out from there in this very direct way. So the origins of trip hop go back to the early 80s in a city in England called Bristol. In Bristol, England. Apparently Bristol, England is just kind of a laid back place where there's a lot of creative folks doing a lot of interesting things. And what would happen in Bristol, and Bristol is kind of known for this, is their creatives would come together and play hip hop in underground clubs, because that's what you did in the 80s, right? And so out of this moment, there was a crew called the Wild Bunch, and they were like a combination of things. They were, of course, musicians, but they were also just kind of like artists and filmmakers and just folks coming together to generally be creative. So here are the members of the Wild Bunch: Tricky, 3D, Nelly Hooper, Mushroom, and Daddy G. All of these names are related to what we talked about last week too, in some way, shape, or form. And I'm going to bring that all around right now. So the Wild Bunch happens in the early to mid 80s, and they break up in like 87, 88. Well, Nelly Hooper goes on to become a member of Soul to Soul. Nelly Hooper co-produced Back to Life and all of that stuff that we love. Nelly Hooper, who was part of the Wild Bunch, was part of Soul to Soul, right? So there's one direct connection. 3D, Tricky, Daddy G, and Mushroom, they go on to found this collective called Massive Attack. It's just a group of producers. They produce together. Now, here's the thing. Very few people have heard this song. I didn't hear this song until in the 2000s. Jason, I'm curious to know if you know this joint. But Massive Attack's first single was Any Love, which is a remake of the Rufus song, Any Love. Super rare, came out in 88. If I played Any Love right now for us, we would be floored. Like, the joint sounds like year 3000 today. So in 1988, I don't even know what could have produced that sound, because it's the combination of samples, it's the vocal layering, it's just the general dopeness and weirdness at the same time. It's like hip hop, but like trippy. It's like hip hop, but like trippy, like with a R&B in there. Crazy. So go to YouTube right after this show and play Any Love by Massive Attack. It's their debut single. It's nuts. Let us know what you think, by the way, after you listen to it. So, one of those people that used to hang out with the Wild Bunch is an artist who we talked about last week. Her name is Neneh Cherry. Neneh Cherry name-checked the Wild Bunch in Buffalo Stance. Neneh Cherry walked Massive Attack into their record deal. She literally ushered them right in to the record deal and was like, these dudes, sign them. Their debut album, Blue Lines, was basically recorded at Neneh Cherry's house. So the foundation of trip hop we got a Soul to Soul layer, we got a Neneh Cherry layer, this is building right to this thing. So Blue Lines drops in 91. I remember when I first heard it. We go talk about that in a minute. But it's a mashup of musical styles, but hip hop is at the foundation, right? So you have the sampling, you have the beats, you have all of that stuff that you would get in hip hop. But what's dope is you got all of this other stuff like that's happening with it too, that makes it special. Also, and I didn't know this, but I was watching a video on Trash Theory, which we'll put the link to in this show description. But this album is one of the earliest examples, and we talked about this not happening last week, but Blue Lines is one of the first times when a person with a British accent raps in their accent on an album. I remember when I heard that and I thought it was like, oh, even though we had Slick Rick, so it shouldn't have been weird, but there was something, I wasn't connecting, like I said, I think last week, I wasn't connecting Slick Rick like that. But Blue Lines becomes a record where this happens. And anyway, this record becomes the basis for trip hop. This is the foundation. Trip hop does not exist. Trip hop isn't even coined until 1994. This record came out in 1991. Nobody says the word trip hop until 1994, but it's this album that jump starts that, where people are like, yeah, I want to do more of this, please. So that's the brief history of trip hop. Jason, I want to bring you in. This is 91. As much as you can, I don't know how much you remember of when you first started to hear this style of music or when that was, but what were you into in 91? And what did this kind of style of music, when do you remember first kind of connecting with it?
1991 would have been De La Soul, would have been NWA, would have been Third Base. In terms of hip hop, I was running their albums into the ground. In 91, my obsession with Frank Zappa was starting. So because of that, you know, I think it's important to note that my musical bookends, I got Frank Vincent Zappa on one side, and I got Prince Rogers Nelson on the other.
Wow.
So that basically means that, you know, when you're listening to just one of those artists, never mind both, but if you have both in your life, they're kind of getting you ready for just about anything. Because both of them, as American composers, are expanding your mind to the idea of what's possible in the world of music. By the time I understand who Massive Attack is, I know it's after 91. I'm getting a little bit of it because I'm just starting. I mean, fall of 91, I mean, that's freshman year of college for me. So I'm just getting into, you know, some of the things that are coming out that would lead us down this trip hop road. In one of our off mic moments last week, Sir Daniel mentioned the group Fresh 4, who's also very much related to the whole Wild Bunch circle of friends. Matter of fact, some of those guys that were in that group, I think at least one, if not two, actually go on to be in Represent with Ronnie Size. So it all kind of connects together. So Fresh 4, they've got that cover of Rolls Royce's "Wishing on a Star." You know, and it's basically, you know, it's the funky drummer loop from the guy who should have been the richest drummer alive.
Say
you
that.
know. So Mr. Clyde Stubblefield on a loop, and you've got those eerie opening chords of Phasos riding high, and a vocalist singing those words from Rolls Royce. So, you know, that's one of the first things that I would have heard within the Wild Bunch umbrella. That was that smoked out, slightly left of center, kind of abstract and surreal take on soul and hip hop coming from across the pond.
Yeah.
My first instance of Massive Attack is Daydreaming from the Blue Lines record.
Yeah.
So that's my introduction. That was really my introduction to Massive Attack and my introduction to Tricky.
Yep. That was the song that was people like, who is this guy like rapping in this British accent? Like unabashedly. Daydreaming. Wow.
And I would say, as far as the accents are concerned, Jerry, I just thought about this. So like, I think people in the UK, especially if we're talking about London, England, I think their accents vary from district to district, neighborhood to whatever. I think there's like, you know, you have people who speak real Cockney, and Cockney is a really broken and hard kind of way of speaking. And I think Slick Rick probably his accent was there, but it wasn't that heavy if you think about it. It was just a really smooth, you know, laid back kind of way of rapping, and it wasn't like over your head. Same thing we discussed with Moni Love and how she spent a lot of time in Brooklyn, so she had a lot of Brooklyn, New York girls to mimic before she was even conscious of it. But you're absolutely right. The We Papa Girls, the We Papa Girl rappers, very straight up British accents. So you could, it's definitely a difference that you hear, and I just wanted to chime in on that. I'm thinking back about my connection to trip hop, and I think I noticed it specifically when D-Light hit the scene,
Mm-hmm.
and they collaborated a lot with Q-Tip,
Mm-hmm.
and I started hearing more of those DJs up front, DJ produced tracks, and they relied heavily on breakbeats.
Mm-hmm.
And so that they always had that hip hop connection. So just like Jason was speaking about, the definitely the Fresh Four,
Mm-hmm.
International Beat, Dub Be Good to Me. Those kinds of songs were always kind of in my repertoire, in the canon of stuff that I was hearing, but I really did not pay attention to it until years and years later, until I started working at HMV Record Store.
Mm-hmm.
HMV, but for whatever reason, HMV was like the spot for me. It was like an
Yeah.
awakening for me working there, because I got exposed to a lot of different sounds, a lot of different tunes, and made quite a bit of different friends. And working alongside certain people, that's when I started hearing things like the Gorillas,
Mm-hmm.
Morchiba,
Yeah.
For Hero, Estero, of
Yep.
course Bjork,
Yep.
Luscious Jackson. The list
Mm-hmm.
goes on, and those, even the Beastie Boys,
Yeah.
on a larger scale, brought a lot of that trip hop sound to the main to the main stage. But a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
remixes is where those DJs and producers really shined, when they got a hold of um mainstream rap music, rap songs, and then flipped it into something of their own. I think one of the very first, I almost forgot about this, and I saw this earlier today and made me remember it. One of the very first versions of like a trip hop record that I can clearly recall that made a huge impact and crossed over was DNA's flip of Suzanne Vega's Tom's Diner.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Yeah.
that was massive, a
You're absolutely
massive,
right.
massive hit. Became a massive hip hop hit when
Yep.
Nikki D touched it and turned it into Daddy's Little Girl. So it's kind of always been around, and that was kind of like my throughway into trip hop. I mentioned UMCs,
Mm-hmm.
and who actually he was down here in Georgia. Not too One of the members of UMCs was down here DJing at an
Mm-hmm.
event. But anyway, yeah, groups like that. We thank De La Soul
Mm-hmm.
and the Native Tongues posse for creating that environment, for rocking, the day glow colors and the weird shirts, the quote unquote weird shirts, taking off the gold chains and putting on the beads,
Mm-hmm.
and creating this atmosphere where people felt comfortable to delve into these different sounds. When we were discussing the Flavor Unit
Mm-hmm.
compilation, you have Amber Sunshower
Yeah.
on that
Oh, Amber
compilation.
Sunshower. Yep.
So we and Groove, well, they were Groove Garden. They were called
Yeah.
Groove Garden at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you have um these different amalgamations of this type of music that we're getting bits and pieces here and there. But
Yeah.
I think it's like definitely the mid 90s when, to be honest, it took a lot of white artists to be put in the forefront for a lot of these things to really, really blow up.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because um one of the early examples in the United States of an artist who used this as a way to come back was Madonna. Bedtime Stories. That
Oh yes.
record, Nelly Hooper did songs on Bedtime Stories. And so this was a musical style that kind of, and for me, was refreshing. So Jason, off air, I said something to Sir Daniel on Sunday, and I was like, I think one of the things that drew me to trip hop was hip hop in pop music was becoming so much one thing. Like, it had moved from, all of this kind of experimental and opportunity to all the stuff on the West Coast and what was happening there. So I felt like everything was G-Funk at one point. It was either G-Funk, boom bap, or like a jazz thing hybrid. It was like you was going to get one of three things in hip hop at the time. And I think the thing that drew me to this was not only was it hip hop at its foundation, but it had all of that soul flavor. So it still brought me back. It connected me to history, but I felt like it was more in line with the hip hop that I liked versus what hip hop was becoming at the time.
Interesting thing about that particular period, and particularly when it just felt like things were moving full steam with the trip hop sound, say 1994 to 1996, like when it all just hit, especially with a lot of stuff that was coming out of the UK at the time.
Yeah.
And labels like Moax and Ninja Tune, they were as much as they were championing their own homegrown sound, they were still those artists that they were reaching out to, that were stateside. In terms of a sound, it's all establishing a mood, and it's establishing a mood in a way that suggests that they're going back to an era of hip hop where the DJ was at the center.
Yes.
You know, and after a while with hip hop, particularly as it became more popular here in the States, and it became clear that number one, it wasn't going anywhere. And number two, the music industry had to find their angle. Their angle was the MC. They had to.
They needed something to sell.
Right. They had to get they had to get the front man and women to make sure that they had that thing that was marketable. And the more that they had the thing that was marketable, the more they could package how this thing was supposed to be marketable. This music was supposed to be marketable. So if it became so much of the same old after a while, you know, clearly that had at least something to do with it. So here comes in this thing that's being ushered in, that's being offered to us as trip hop, as that's something else. And when there are those lyricists, it's not as if they're in your face. It's not as if they have to be loud and brash and obnoxious. It's these hushed, whispered tones bringing you this verse. Yeah. Almost in some cases to the point of where you almost feel guilty for listening in because you feel like you're ear hustling.
Yeah.
It feels like eavesdropping. Yeah. Because the tones are so hushed. But then again, you have these hypnotic and subtle grooves that are taking their cues from dub, that are taking their cues from the softer sides of soul, that are taking their cues from more esoteric moments within hip hop itself. So it's not as if the vocalist had to be this dynamic against the music that didn't really have much of a place to be combative with the music. If anything, it wanted to blend in or be just a baby hair above where the music was. As beautiful as that sound, and as beautiful as all of that sounds, you know, marketing's going to market.
Right.
So even with that, you know, it's 1994, as you said. It's Andy Pemberton in Mixmag magazine who drops that term trip hop and basically, you know, frames it in such a way as, you know, this is for the listening room. This is for the heads. This is for the introspective moments of life. And if you want to get smoked out, there's that too. Shout out to Smoker's Delight by Nightmares on Wax. So there's that. So at its best marketing moments, it's that, right? But in its not so great moments, there's offering up the idea of trip hop for those who want to get into hip hop but need to hear something safer, who
Oh.
need to hear something with the black voice extracted.
Mm.
Ooh.
Mm.
So
Ooh.
there's
Oh.
that.
Ooh. Ooh. Okay. This is a great entry point because we're still in 94.
Mhm.
Yep.
Ooh. One of the most important albums in this canon is Portishead's Dummy, which by the time we get to Portishead 3, we realize, oh, this is just kind of like a rock band who did who did two albums like this. But this is like 3 is like this is who they really are, right? But listen, talking about that extraction, right? For me was also like this expansion. I felt for me, Portishead's Dummy was like, it blew my mind because I'm like, I'm literally listening to, at its foundation, a hip hop album with this white, folky voice on top of it, singing lyrics that are kind of weird. It's a little scary. The videos are strange. The cover doesn't make sense. But this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. And then we have Bahamadia, who I remember in an interview was like, no, like Portishead's Dummy is like my favorite thing that I'm listening to. And I'm like, okay, so it's not just me.
Yeah.
Like this album's really, really good.
Cause like you could throw on joints from those bodies of work, and the hip hop heads, would automatically start nodding. Like they mastered the head nod factor of these particular bodies of work, and that is the essence that of hip hop that they extracted.
Mm.
And so, and that's how they pulled us in. That's why people were like, oh, like I remember when I first heard Bjork's Homeogenic.
Yo. Nelly
That
Hooper again. Yo.
that album from front to back is like, you know, you get the stink face and you're like, and Bjork is singing along in her, you know, her very Icelandic accent and very, you know, almost infantile kind of voice, but very strong lyrics. And you can't help but to nod along to this, like, oh, this is, you know, this is crazy right here. And you also have people like Beck coming
Mm-hmm.
along and doing his thing, you know, in the confines of trip hop, but expanding it as well. And yeah, I just think that this type of music, Jason, you hit it on the head about extracting the black voices, because that's just an ongoing theme that we've pinpointed on cue points throughout the years of us doing this show, is that we will create something, we'll master it, but then other people will come along, sample it, and do it to the best of their capability and garner so much more praises and garner awards and more money than a lot of the black voices, the black creatives that actually started it. So that's just, thank you for that, Jim, because you really kind of cemented what we have been talking about here on Q Points. And when we come back
Yeah.
after this break, because we're up against a break here, we're going to delve into drum and bass.
Yeah. This comes
And
back full circle again.
comes full circle again. And J Ray just mentioned one of my favorite female MCs, just a dope MC, period, Bahamadia, and how she kind of pulled me into the whole drum and bass thing. And we'll talk about that more on the other side of this break. But this is Q Points Podcast. I'm DJ Sir Daniel.
J
We're
Ray.
joined. That's J Ray, and we are joined by our very special guest, Jason Randall Smith. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about the drum and bass connection to hip hop here on Q Points Podcast, where we are constantly dropping the needle on Black music history. We'll be right back.
On October 21st and 22nd, join indie podcasters from all around the world at the 5th Annual Afros and Audio Podcast Festival, the first 2-day conference for and by Black indie podcast creatives and audio professionals. This year's conference will be held at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum in downtown Baltimore, Maryland, or virtually on the Hoover Event app for exclusive online sessions. Stay with us at the Renaissance Harbor Place Hotel and experience 2 days of panels, workshops, networking opportunities, and live entertainment for aspiring, new, and established podcast creatives. Don't miss one of the most anticipated events in the podcast industry, committed to community and collaboration since 2019. Learn more and purchase your tickets at afrosandaudio.com. See you there.
It's Q Points Podcast. We are back, still dropping the needle on Black music history. DJ Sir Daniel here alongside with my co-host and music soulmates, J. Ray, and our cousin, Jason Randall Smith. We are here talking about trip hop and drum and bass. And before we left for the break, we were talking about drum and bass and how I was sucked. Now, okay, so yes, Bahamadia. I'm going to get to Bahamadia shortly. But I have to give a shout out to my friends Heather and her partner at that time, Okori. This is like 96. And I was over at their house and they were like, yo, Sir Daniel needs to hear this. Have you heard of Ronnie Size? And I was like, Ronnie Size? No, who's that? Oh, you gotta hear this. You gotta hear this. And they throw on Brown Paper Bag.
Yeah.
Completely blows my mind from the first I mean, I'm like, what's happening here is it's a very anxious beat. It's aggressive. And then, but Ronnie Size comes in. Do you think that you can hang 10 when you think you're the thing? It's so smooth. It's so laid back. And I'm just like, yo, what? I need more of this. And then I hear more about this. Okay, yeah, this is drum and bass. Okay, yeah, I kind of like that. Then another friend of mine, Rodney, turns me on to Pizzicato 5. And I'm hearing that the doubled up, boom, the doubled up beats. And it's just, I'm like, okay, I really like this. This is really fun. And I'm going into different stores. Like I'm going, visiting Little 5 Points and going into Satellite Records. Back in the day, if you remember Satellite Records, they had a huge drum and bass and dub collection, and they would always be playing it. You would go into the Wish store, and they were playing drum and bass over the air. And I'm like, wow, this thing is really taking over, and it's super danceable, but it's something just so dope about putting a drum and bass beat over a melody, and it like just completely changes it up. One time on that same Pizzicato 5 album, The World, I can't remember the name of the title, but it is The World Turns It something. That's a great description. They have a rhythm on there that is the same rhythm that Missy Elliott at the time is killing the game for I Can't Stand the Rain. Super Duper Fly. And so so Timbaland is in tune to this movement here, this musical movement. And so I'm like seeing all of these connections, like, the hip hop heads, a lot of the hip hop heads are really into this and are making a coin overseas. Then enters Bahamadia with her BB Queen release. And who does she have a track with? First of all, she's on the Ronnie Size album.
Right. On the title track, New Forms.
And then she drops BB Queen, where she does some more, she's rapping at like this unimaginable rate that only she can do in the hushed but very controlled way that she raps, that only she can do, and she's like still holding your attention. And then I also hear her on Sweetback's album. So I am completely wrapped up in like all things that might have a little drum and bass to it, or rappers kind of leaning into this new form and giving a little taste, and you start hearing little bits and pieces in it in United States hip hop.
Yep.
So
Listen.
we are continuing our conversation on that, on hip hop's relationship to drum and bass. And J Ray is about to hit us with another brief history of DMB. So
Yeah.
what's the ballistics, G?
Yo, I'm gonna kick the ballistics, G. Yo, so drum and bass is everything that you basically said too, Sir Daniel. Like, the beautiful thing about it is you have these really hard beats, the drum and the bass, and you put these beautiful melodies on top of it, right? So the history of drum and bass, though, when you trace it back, it traces back to jungle in the UK. Now, here's the thing. Jungle in the UK emerges basically out of racism, for real. So in the 80s, during the time when the Wild Bunch and all these folks is doing the thing, like all these raves are happening, right? The raves in the UK, that's how house music becomes real big over in the UK, right? Now, quiet as kept. Initially, they didn't want that over there either. They didn't want that black. They used all the terms. They didn't want the black gay music over there. They didn't want that at first, right? But anyway, the DJs in the clubs, in particular the black DJs are like, they're, Jamaican heritage. They want to play some reggae and put the beats with it. The white people was not about it. They was like, we don't want that. We don't want that. So what the black DJs were doing is like, well, let's have our own parties. And what we gonna do is we gonna do our mashups. We gonna take our reggae and these fast rave drum and bass tracks essentially, and we're gonna mash them up and we're gonna make something. So we're going to do what hip hop does. We are going to make blends and we're gonna play them at the parties. And it went crazy over there. So jungle became the quintessential black music in the UK for like a period of time. So and essentially what they were doing is you could get your Anita Baker sample on top of a drum and bass track, right? But it was real dirty and it was real gritty. But it really did emerge out of black folks wanting this type of dance music for us that we could dance to and we can relate to. And the way they translated that was first through reggae and dub into this style, right? But it's gritty, it was fast, all the things. Now, the question might be, what's the difference between drum and bass and jungle? The line is real blurry, but here is the difference. Jungle, I talked about the importance of sampling, the importance of the sample being there. So you're sampling a specific song that you might know. That's the foundation. Whereas in drum and bass, we're doing the thing that Sir Daniel was talking about is you're going to take the drum and bass out. You're going to take the beat out. And then you're going to throw on top of it something else, some other new melody. So what drum and bass becomes is like a shinier, sheenier version of jungle that's also new. It's distinct because it has the same sort of foundation, but what's sitting on top of it is something different. And that style so that's the history of how drum and bass emerge. So drum and bass emerges in that 94, 95 time frame during the same time when we're talking about the trip hop stuff. These clubs in the UK are going crazy on the jungle, but then we get Goldie and this drum and bass sound beginning to happen. And so for me, This means a lot. So I know what it was called. I first got put on to drum and bass when I heard these lyrics. I'm just read these lyrics and I'm going to tell you what it's from. Come to me in those open arms is where I want to be. Living free, I need to be. I need to be your love. Living free, I long to be. I long to be your love. Inner city life, inner city pressure. That is Inner City Life from Goldie's debut album. So you get this woman, Diane Charlemagne. I saw the video on like Video Vibrations or something. You got this beautiful vocal. This woman is singing those lyrics. These are gorgeous lyrics. Halfway through the song, boom, da, 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 like the beat is crazy. And I'm like, wait, what just happened? And it was one of the, it still brings me to a time. I played that song today. It literally situates me in a period of time where nothing else matters but that sound. And I feel comforted because I have this Black woman singing to me, and she is singing about love, and I understand that. And it also allows me to be on the dance floor too, which is another place that I really love to be. And so that was my introduction to drum and bass. Like I said, I didn't know what that was called then, but I wanted that. And so that Tricky's first album, that Timeless album, the first song on that album is like 20 minutes long, y'all. I had never heard nothing like that before. Well, I mean, I had, because I listened to Funkadelic, but it wasn't, but it wasn't that fast. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's the history of drum and bass. That's how I got like enveloped into that sound. Jason, talk to us about that. For you, I saw your face when I started reading the lyrics for Inner City Life too. So I know you understand that feeling that I'm talking about as well.
Where did you go? Because you went somewhere when J Ray was reading that, Jason.
That's a really, really special song. And at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, eternal respect due to the memory and living legacy of Diane Charlemagne.
Yes. Oh my God. Rest in peace.
Yes. I mean, that voice is it cut through so much. And to have that voice singing to you and soaring over these ferocious break beats and filling in the silence are just these ambient swells, these chords. There's something really, really special happening on Timeless throughout that whole album. And I do think in addition to Goldie and in addition to Sister Diane Charlemagne, shout out to Rob Playford, who was easily one of the busiest dudes in drum and bass at the time that this was happening, because he was the guy who was engineering a lot of that stuff. Did a lot of engineering work for Timeless, did a lot of engineering work for a lot of people. He was DJing. He was very deep into the music. He ran his own label, Moving Shadow, which I was learning a lot about during the time that Timeless dropped. But Timeless was my introduction to not only Goldie, but the Metalheads label that he was very much a part of, a label that is still around. It's crazy to think that some of these labels have been around for, going on 30 years now. One of these other labels, V Recordings, shout out to Brian G. I mean, they've been touring on like 30 years of V Recordings right now, doing a whole bunch of different parties and events. So this music, there's always going to be a place for this music. Yeah. The closer we got to this conversation, the more I kept thinking to myself, drum and bass keeps you young. Drum and bass keeps you young.
Yeah.
There's just something about how that music moves.
Mm.
And whether you're talking about someone like, say, LTJ Bukem, who for me is one of the quintessential examples of the ferocious, chaotic nature of how the beats are moving and how you have this atmospheric wash of beautiful sounds and chords and harmonies and melodies that are working in conjunction with these beats. So you have someone like that in drum and bass, and then as you were talking about with jungle and the various samples, you know, during the time that this music was really taking a hold within the UK, and there were pockets of places in the States where you could hear this music all night. You know, I already had one foot in the warehouse parties. I had one foot in the raves, you know, getting into techno, getting into house, but it was jungle, it was drum and bass. It was just like, oh no, you belong. Come on in. You belong. Come on in. Because there was musical Morse code that was happening. I was hearing the stuff that was being sampled in hip hop. I was hearing the soul and the funk and sometimes the rock, and it was being brought to me in this new rhythmic context. And if you're a student of the drum at any level, this music is speaking to you. I was hearing certain break beats. I was hearing Dennis Coffey's Scorpio. And in the drum and bass world, you know, you're just speeding that up. You go straight over to Ronnie Size and Represents Share the Fall. It's boom. So it's right there. It's a musical Morse code for anyone that delves deeply into hip hop, has been spending time with all of this stuff that's being sampled.
Yeah.
Circles by Adam F. Sampling Bob James's Westchester Lady. Like, how many times have we heard Westchester Lady in a hip hop context, and now I'm hearing it in this atmospheric drum and bass context? For me, it's right up there with Goldie's Inner City Life, because it takes me to a place immediately. One of the most exciting moments at a Central Park summer stage show was watching Ronnie Size and Represent in the park.
Wow.
And when the bass line started up for Brown Paper Bag, we lost it. Lost it. That was a moment.
Yo, see, like Carlton in the chat is like, yo, this is very therapeutic, right? Musical therapy. It's that thing. It's that thing that you're talking about, Jason. It's that thing, Sir Daniel, that you're talking about. Okay, let me see what time it is. I want to do a quick detour, just a quick detour. I'm about to, because you mentioned a couple of labels. One of the things I forgot about was that Ronnie Size, so New Forms was released on Talking Loud, which was Giles Peterson's label. I want to take a minute to love on, we talked about Giles on the last show, Jason Randall Smith is our American Giles Peterson. So we have him right here, the American version of that, right? That label, yo, let me just read some of the folks that dropped. For Hero, one, drum and bass legends, but even more than that, like they transitioned into pop and soul music. I mean, Jill Scott has been on a For Hero album. Like, come on, like it gets no better. So For Hero was on Talking Loud. Dwayne was signed over there for a second. Incognito, their big records was over there. New Eureka Soul, Omar, MC Solar, Jazzanova. Listen, this label, Young Disciples. Me and Sir Daniel was talking about Young Disciples. I was like, Move On by the Young Disciples is just one of the best British soul songs ever done. Shout out to Carlene Anderson. who is my friend on Facebook. I feel like we're friends in real life. We are not, but we're still friends. And we've been friends on Facebook for a long time. But anyway, I say all that to say, I just wanted to love on Talking Loud for a second, because that record, that label is a thing. So I don't know if y'all want to muse on that for a second, please do. But I just wanted to show that label some love.
No, I get it. And what I love about this discussion, Jerry, is how we can still circle back to hip hop. And Jason, I do have a question for you. When I listen to certain drum and bass songs, that they sound so much, and y'all are going to think I'm crazy for this, but they sound so much like Miami bass hip hop songs. And I'm talking about classic Miami bass, early Two Live Crew, Gucci Crew, and Create. Just that we talked about sample of breakbeats, a lot of Bobby Bird, I'm coming drum, the drums sped up to have that, to the topics, of course, were a lot different. The lyrics are a lot different, but I still feel the same. The energy is akin to each other, because Miami bass music of that time, of that era, was about a lot of reckless abandon and freedom. A lot of sexual freedom was being explored as well. A lot of street tales, and the same thing can be said for the movement that was happening in the UK with drum and bass. So, what are your thoughts on the styles and similarities between like a US hip hop Miami bass and drum and bass?
Well, there were certain sounds that were happening here that were clearly influencing what was going on over there. Even James Lavelle, the head of MOAX, was talking about certain records over here that he felt like should be the template for MOAX when it got started. One of them was King of the Beats by Mantronics. Another one was 33% God by Beastie Boys, which is really just the instrumental for Shake Your Rump, but peppered with all of these different samples and fast cuts that the Dust Brothers used to do for them during that whole Paul's Boutique era. So they were looking very closely and listening very closely at American breakbeat styles. And I think to a certain degree, for some of the things that were happening with something like a Miami bass, with those faster paced grooves. I mean, it's those hyperactive break beats and those rave-tastic pianos and things like that get filtered over and make their way over into jungle and into drum and bass. So we had some things that were going on in various pockets, various regions of the continental United States, whether it was that Miami bass sound, or I also think about like the ghetto tech, the ghetto house stuff.
Oh, from Detroit.
People like DJ Assault.
Love that stuff.
So that was a whole other thing. And I feel like, those two, the ghetto house, the ghetto tech, and that Miami bass, like those are close play cousins right there, musically.
Yeah.
So little things like that would happen. And again, it's the trading of information across the pond. You had certain sectors here listening to certain sectors over there, and vice versa. And then you had bands that would tour. Some of our bands would tour over there, pick up on some things, bring it back. So one of my favorite albums from the Roots is Things Fall Apart.
Yeah.
And when you've got that little 30-second moment and You Got Me where the drum and bass starts
when that happened, I heard that live for the first time. I'm sorry to cut you off, but that brought me back to a moment. I used to see the Roots all the time in Philly, and I heard that live for the first time. I was like, there's no way Quest is going to do that. He completely did. He played that drum beat on his kit live.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wasn't that amazing?
I would have seen that when they toured with when they did a show with Gangstar at the Hammerstein Ballroom. So that moment was a moment. I completely and totally agree. But it was one of those things where, maybe you had to really be there to get it. For most people, I think for those of us who had been introduced to and entranced by drum and bass before, once you hear that moment and you got me start fading out, it wasn't a surprise to us, because it was just like, since organics, they were getting love over, across the pond. Of course, they're going to bring something like that back. For everybody else that might have been listening to like the Power 105s and the Hot 97s of the world, there was just like, okay, what is this? And they might have to hear that within a live music context in order to really get it. So maybe they didn't get it with that, and maybe they didn't get it with something like, say, Bombs Over Baghdad by Outkast.
Yep.
That's running around what? Yep. 150, 155 BPMs, something crazy like that.
It's up there,
but it had that feel. But it certainly with more of a, maybe that was a close cousin to that Miami bass sound too, because it's pulling a little bit of that in there. Yep. One of the things that I think our musical compadres over in the UK are really great at is looking at different ways to finesse bass music. It's like they have this multi-sided prism, and they just keep thinking about different ways in which that needs to come out. Sometimes it's jungle and drum and bass, sometimes it's dubstep, sometimes it's grime. It's subgenres upon subgenres upon subgenres over there. Yeah, so they've really been able to finesse that, but I don't think they've been able to get to all of these different subdivisions without looking across the pond in terms of what we were doing. Because there were a number of American breakbeat moments that definitely influenced what ultimately ended up happening around their way.
I'm sorry, Jerry. It was you just reminded me of something that, and I think you remember this moment, J-Ray, when we had the opportunity to interview Jazzy Joyce, DJ Jazzy Joyce. And there was a moment before people started showing up, and she and some of the DJs, DJ JC and Tommy Black, were playing, because we were at the Scratch Academy. And so they were just messing around between, behind the turntables, catching beats and, going back and forth and whatnot. And Joyce slowed it down for a second, and she said, you know what? Do you know why the bass is so important? And everybody was like, well, because it starts us off on the one and, the count. And that's how we count. She said, no, the bass replicates your mother's heartbeat, which is the very first beat that we all ever hear. And that stuck with me. It's been several years now, right, J-Ray? And when she said that, everybody got quiet. And it was like, she is absolutely right. And I bring that up because no matter what pace that bass is going at, we all are in tune with it. I could see in your face. I wasn't even there with you, Jason, but I can imagine how it felt when you heard Brown Paper Bag, when you heard that drop. And with drum and bass, it's all about the drop, right? That moment where you're lingering. We're all just lingering with the swells like you were talking about. There might be some keys playing, there might be some strings, and we're all just lingering, hovering, and it's the anticipation of that drop is what really brings us together to experience this really climactic moment in the music that we all have. But it happened, and it doesn't matter the pace though, because it could be an upwards of 160 BPMs, or it could be down to a 95, 98. It all has us. We all react to it in the same way. And I really enjoyed this conversation because you all have dug up and sparked some memories that I hadn't thought of in a while. But J-Ray, you and I were talking about, I think this was brought on because they just they released a new project, but Everything But the Girl.
Yeah.
Walking Wounded project is really what solidified and was like, okay, I'm a fan. I love this kind of music. Because when I hear at the very beginning of the album, when I hear
Before Today,
and it's got that kind of French Parisian organ playing, and the beat is just chatting along with you, and you're like, okay, this is it. This is definitely a moment. This was that same 96 era.
Yes, 96
was definitely a moment. I think it's an album that definitely changed the game. Again, they got more mainstream appeal.
Yep.
Because we've got two white faces on this album.
Yeah.
However, you still have all these different artists that you guys have mentioned that were doing the same thing and had the same effect on you, but weren't getting as much shine. And again, that is why we do Q Points podcast, to remind you all of these moments and these memories. And of course, we've talked about Ronnie Size at length.
Real quick, before we get off that, hold on, because I do want to, that Everything But the Girl record, I do want to, what I love about you mentioning that, Sir Dale, too, is because that record straddles both of these things that we're talking about. So that's one of the things that made that record cut through is, well, one, you have Tracy's vocal and that songwriting. Listen, that right there is always going to do it, right? She is one of those artists, songwriter, vocally is going to deliver in a way that you feel it. So you have that, but you also have been listening to what's happening, because Walking Wounded for Everything But the Girl was their do or die. Like they in fact, their remix album after Temperamental was called Adapt or Die. They had done everything that they could do on the pop side of things. You know, the jazzy stuff and all of that. And it was like, if we didn't adapt, we were not going to make it as a band. So Walking Wounded was like, let's throw all of that away and listen to what's happening and interpret that in this context. And so they brought in a little of that drum and bass. They brought in some trip hop into that record and was like, all right, Tracy, sing on that. Just sing on it. And it worked. And what was dope about that, and the reason why I wanted to go back to it, is because without drum and bass in particular, and without Walking Wounded, we just don't get the Timbaland stuff that emerges in 1997. Like, we don't get. So when we talk about that Aaliyah record and we talk about all that stuff that Timbaland was doing at that time, that stuff exists because of all of that foundation that Goldie and all of them cats laid, because Timbaland was listening to that stuff. Absolutely. And all he did was put that thing in an American hip hop context. He took all of that fast stuff that was happening over there and was like, I'm going to use that, but I'm not going to use all of it. I'm just going to double time a part. and let it ride. And man, we didn't know what to do with it when we got it, but it changed the game. So I just wanted to love on that. Thank you for bringing up Walking Wounded, because it led to it was the point in the road that led to so many other things.
It did. And Jason, I want you to add, something just came to my mind. I believe so. There was an article that came out that a lot of labels are crying, and that was the term they used, crying, because nobody's interested in the music anymore, and the sales are abysmal, and nobody's excited, especially in hip hop now and R&B. Hip hop isn't charting like it used to. What do you think it would do to the energy of the music now if we exercise the power of the remix like we did back in the day? Like, it would be nothing for us to get a dope remix, a plain white label remix from across the pond of a United States hit just 20 years ago. But now we're not exercising that anymore. What do you think? Do you think it could inject new life into this music that we're experiencing today?
Quite possibly. The trade-ups from, the trade-ups across the pond in regards to remixes were always fun. But even just stateside, think about the feeling you get when you hear the Pete Rock remix of Public Enemy Shut 'Em Down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I completely lose it still. It is one of my all-time favorite hip hop remixes ever. In terms of what we're talking about right now, it's maybe remixes can do it. And also the features within taking the artists that and putting them in a rhythmic environment that you don't always expect them to be in. I mean, on Goldie's second album, Saturn Returns, he's working with KRS-One for digital. The second Ronnie Size and Represent album, Method Man shows up. Zach De La Rocha shows up. So, and not only that, but a little later on down the line in Redman's career, there's an album that ends with a Ronnie Size produced cut. And he sounds like he's right at home. He sounds like he's right at home over that beat, just attacking it. So maybe these are the things that we need. But it's going to take the type of risk taking that, the industry don't necessarily dig so tough. And when they do it, the times that they have done it, it's because they kind of feel like they're backed into a corner. They have no other place to go, and they throw up basically a harmonic Hail Mary. It's their Jesus take the wheel. Basically.
They're like, we're just gonna go. Here we go.
Yeah. But I mean, these things have happened before. And maybe we do really, maybe we really do need to get back to the remix game. I think about, we've talked about For Hero, and I think about the beautiful job that For Hero did with Nuyorican Soul's I Am the Black Gold of the Sun. Because you have that moment in the second half where they bring you to that drum and bass place and take everything that happened before that with you. But the thing we got to remember about Digo McFarlane and Mark Mack is there's some soul boys.
Yeah.
They some soul boys to their heart.
Yeah.
And they love them some Charles Stepney.
Yeah.
So having them remix a song that was originally done by Rotary Connection, that's a slam dunk for them. That's a slam dunk for them, especially when you consider the touch that they did in covering Minnie Riperton's Le Fleur.
Oh, that's such a beautiful cover. That cover
Yeah.
off what is I can't remember the album name right now. But that whole record slap. The For Hero catalog. Top
Yeah,
notch.
that whole discography is crazy. And that whole discography, whether they're doing the hyperactive breakbeat thing, whether they're into their drum and bass bag, or whether they bring it back to soul, soul is the foundation for them. It's the musical linchpin for everything that they do. So we think about that cover of La Fleur, and that transfers right into, well, let's just do Charles Stepney in our own take, since we love this dude so much. So when you get to a record like Play with the Changes, and it starts off with a cut like Morning Child.
That's such a great record, by the way.
I mean, come on.
Look Inside
It's just
is one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, they have clearly studied the greats, and studied them in such a way that they are not a derivative of them, but they pay homage to the people who came before them by carving their own path. As long as we have the people who carve their own path, we're always going to get something exciting. Now, whether this industry gets with that or not is a whole other thing. The excitement is around us. Sometimes you have to go regional in order to find it. Sometimes you got to go to other places in order to get it. If the funkiness is in Cambodia, go
to Cambodia.
You got to go. You gotta pack up your bags from where you are and go to where that is. One last remix I'll leave you with, and since we've shown love to Ronnie Size so much, his remix of Nuyorican Soul's "It's All Right, I Feel It."
I haven't heard it. Okay.
Gracious. So take the voice of Jocelyn Brown and drop it into a drum and bass context.
Oh, all day.
Okay.
It works.
Yeah. So, and that's not the last time that would happen either.
Of course.
In terms of her collaborating, with some drum and bass producers. These things are happening for the people that we love, past, present, and the ones that we looking towards in the future, because we just like, oh yeah, they got next. These things are happening. The excitement is there. It's there within original versions. It's there within remixes that we don't expect. Sometimes we're not always looking in the right places for them. I would hope that there would be someone willing enough within the industry to, especially stateside, to take the chances that need to be taken. I mean, it isn't all bad. I mean, Don is heading Blue Note right now. So there's that. You got a guy who was with Was Not Was, who's got a key place within Blue Note. And because of that, some incredible things have been happening at Blue Note.
We got that Michelle record.
Exactly. A multi-album deal with Michelle on Blue Note. That hasn't happened until now. These things are happening. So as long as we as long as we're willing to have ears, a mind, and a heart for something that's able to take us someplace that we haven't been, and maybe we need to get there due to what's come before us. Our heads over in the UK were listening to us just like a number of us within pockets and places were listening to them. The developments in UK soul and hip hop, the developments that happen with trip hop and drum and bass, they get poured right into a number of the things that are happening now. We don't have a beat maker like Knowledge without trip hop.
Right.
We don't have the crazier sides of the things that Madlib did. We don't have this incredible run from Flying Lotus and Brain Feeder Recordings and that whole roster if it isn't for some of the rhythmic and sonic twists and turns that have happened overseas and get reinterpreted into different ways over here. We don't have that. It's going to keep happening. Nothing's necessarily new under the sun, but there are still new and inventive and interesting ways that we can look at it if we just turn the prism a little bit. Get a little more light out of it.
Man, listen, Jason Randall Smith, host of BSOTS, Both Sides of the Surface. If you are digging everything that you heard, and I know you are because, you know, we know y'all. Y'all need to be listening to BSOTS, so make sure that y'all check that out because this is the knowledge that comes out of that. Man, Sir Daniel, this was a monster show.
Absolutely. I feel like we, you know, last week we're almost at that almost there, that 2 hour mark. Not quite, but that only happens when we have someone on like a Jason Randall Smith who engrosses us in the conversation, engrosses us with his knowledge about the subject, about things that we may have forgotten, and ways to look towards the future that we hadn't even considered. I must acknowledge in the chat, you know, Mark, one of our day ones, brought up K Tronada. You know, thank God for K Tronada, who is taking that risk. You know, we need more risk takers because that's when the industry listens. That's when everybody listens up. And that's when, you know, radio has to make room for these new forms. For these new forms of music that we are presenting to the community, and we're all going to benefit from it. Jason, please remind the listener how they can keep in contact with you and where they can listen to BSOTS and just soak up all of the knowledge that you have to offer us.
Will do. Got to shout out Mark in the chat room for mentioning K Tronada. The human embodiment of what happens when hip hop and house aren't afraid to take their relationship out in public.
That part, literally,
because the relationship exists. That's a whole other show that we have to do. But
man, that's a whole other show. It really is.
Trying to act like it doesn't, but go
ahead.
Both Sides of the Surface radio BSOTS can be found at bsots.com, BSOTS.com. Wherever you listen to podcasts, it is more than likely within all the places. Just do a search for BSOTS. It will more than likely come up that way. In regards to the socials, you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on X. His mama named him Twitter. I'm going to call him Twitter. So you could find me in all those places. Please give me a follow. Please give me a shout. Would love to hear from you. And again, if you Mixcloud crazy like I am, please give me a follow over there. Mixcloud.com/Macedonia, Mixcloud.com/Jason Randall Smith.
Awesome.
J-Ray, this, thank God, you know, when you said we need to do a part 2, I was like, do we? Yeah, you were correct. So I'm glad we listened to the spirit in that aspect, and we went ahead and did a part 2 with our brother Jason Randall Smith. Before we wrap up, though, I would be so remiss if I did not mention, we were talking about all these fantastic DJs that made impact in the dance world. We cannot close the show without mentioning and paying respects to the honor of the life of DJ Casper.
Oh, yes, we didn't talk about that.
We lost DJ Casper. He fought valiantly against 2 forms of cancer, and even though the music is not completely within the realm of what we're talking about tonight, we're still talking about somebody that introduced a record that turned the world upside down. The Cha-Cha Slide will forever I mean, that is going to be a song that is going to last. I mean, that is probably up there with Before I Let Go by Frankie Beverly and Maze, and The Electric Slide. Those are the songs that bring the community together. We've talked about this, J. Ray, about songs where people that ordinarily wouldn't go out on the dance floor, but when they hear that one record, it makes them feel like they can be a part of the party and be a part of the line, as it were, and they can join in and get their life. And we need those types of records, just like we need all of the records that we spoke about earlier and everything that Jason spoke to. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we paid respect to him and to his art and to the legendary DJs in Chicago like him that have really put it down and keep this culture moving and grooving. So with that said, J. Ray, please remind the listeners how they can keep in contact with us, because they're going to want more of Q Points after this, because you can't get all of this goodness and not come back for more.
Right. And shout out to Mark in the chat, who's like, listen, a part 2 is needed for both of these shows. Mark, I think you're right. I think we have stumbled on to topics that we need to continue to explore. But so what you can do is subscribe wherever you are listening or watching. Go one step further, if you don't mind, and share the show with your friends and your family to let them know about Q Points. That is really important to us and is absolutely free. And we would really appreciate that. You can become a member by visiting our website at qpoints.com and clicking the subscribe button. You can purchase merch on our website at store.qpoints.com and join our newsletter. That's another way to stay up with us and get some goodies that don't always make it into the show. We appreciate y'all so much.
Absolutely. And J. Ray, what do I always say? In this life, you have the opportunity. You can either pick up the needle or you can let the record play. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
I'm J. Ray.
And that is Jason Randall Smith. And this has been Q Points Podcast, forever dropping the needle on Black music history. We'll see you on the next go round. Peace.
Peace, y'all.